Let's move on to what I'm going to call
football.
And yes, upset Saturday is what I'll fucking call it. Okay. Thursday night we had a game. We had, Rutgers visiting Louisville, and it was pretty uneventful. Louisville, sitting at 8 in the country, got it done, 24-10. But then Saturday came around and shit started getting kind of hectic. It's getting. You remember that joint?
Yep.
Where do you want to start, man?
Was that? Well, I mean, I'd say let's start with the teams who won, who we didn't expect to win. I mean, first off the top, you got to start with Missouri, who's undefeated and in the SEC now, traveling to Georgia and getting it done.
Getting it done, man. 6-0, 2-0 in the SEC, and they put it on Georgia. And I said 2 or 3 weeks ago, I'm like, I think Georgia's over. And then they came back and they had a great game. And then last week they struggled. And I'm thinking, okay, what I was thinking before about Georgia but all of a sudden Missouri just came out of nowhere. And
And now, fairness to Missouri. Missouri's played the tomato cans of their schedule, and now they play the real deal because Missouri's a reward for going and winning at Georgia. They get to host Florida, and Florida just got beat. I mean, I know the score was low in the Florida LSU game, but to be honest, it was never that close.
I thought they were supposed to run the table.
I was told with this backup quarterback they were going to run the table, and I'm going to tell you right now, I understand he's a sophomore. I'm not overly impressed with the Florida quarterback. He only managed 6 points. And their defense was supposed to be top-notch, and they gave up 17 points to LSU. Now, I know LSU's been scoring more, but this is an SEC game, and I'm going to tell you what, even though the score was 17-6, it wasn't that close. LSU dominated on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, LSU just destroyed them. I mean, they put up 14 in the second quarter, and to me, at that point in time, it was pretty much over. Florida never seemed in the game. I think they got 3 more points. Yeah, they did. They never got a touchdown. They never got in the end zone. And just LSU's defense was stingy as fuck. And, I mean, if you've got this backup quarterback that's supposed to be so great, he couldn't find a way to get it done. And I mean, I tell you what, other teams we saw last week, teams are putting up points on LSU. They have a great defense. I'm not taking away anything from LSU, but other teams were putting up points on LSU. And Florida
LSU's defense is just now starting to get a hold of this thing. But and now sticking with the upset theme, Northwestern traveled to Wisconsin. Now, to me, I understand this is an upset in the sense that one team was ranked and one team wasn't. But at one point, Wisconsin was the 25th team in the nation. So I don't think this was as much as an upset. I think the score was shocking with Wisconsin beating Northwestern 35-6.
Right. I think what hurt Wisconsin more so than their loss to Ohio State was the loss they took by the hands of Arizona State. And that knocked them out of the top 25. But they came back and they fucking just put it on Northwestern. I mean, they did. I mean, Northwestern.
They took them to the woodshed.
They did. Another team that did not get in the end zone Saturday. That was an upset. Then we had another upset, which was it was literally upset. We had the game that was possibly the game so far of the year, and that was Michigan travel.
Well, I was going to say save that one. Let's talk about the other upset game with Stanford going to Utah.
Stanford, I mean, Utah, and you know what? Stanford's coach said it the best. It's like, they're a good team. They got it done. They look good out there. And it was no excuses. He's like, we got outplayed. And
let me tell you right now, under no circumstance should the number 5 team lose to an unranked team ever in the history of Everdom. That shit should not happen, and it happened. I understand they had to go on the road, but you do not, championship teams do not lose that game.
Yeah. I mean, and they, everybody's like Utah shocks there. I mean, they won that game. I mean, they were, if you really think about it, at one time they were down 27-14. They were down 27-14 for a while. They were not, I wouldn't go so far as to say dominating, but they were handling fucking Stanford easily in Utah.
And Stanford still has a chance to win the Pac-12, but they turn around next week, play at home, and they're hosting UCLA. UCLA's 9. Stanford went from 5 to 13. If Stanford loses this game, they might be out of the top 25. They have to win this game to stay in the top 25, in my opinion.
When they face UCLA?
Yeah, they're playing home next week versus UCLA.
Where did they drop to in the rankings? Do you know?
They went from number 5 to number 13.
If they lose to UCLA, who is now ranked higher than them, they will probably stay in the top 25 because UCLA hasn't had a loss this year.
Two losses in a row.
Yeah, I mean, but you got to
maybe it's because we just got done talking about the UFC, and I'm used to like 2 losses and you become irrelevant. I forgot this is actually college football.
Yeah,
they would definitely drop to like 20 in the 20s.
Yeah. They'll drop to the 20s, but Morris got something going on. I mean, he is doing something over there in UCLA. And one of the things he did was he got a lot of the best high school coaches, that were in the area in the California, in the Los Angeles area. He hired them as staff so he'd have the ability to recruit all the local talent. And it's starting to pay off for him now because they fucking house Cal 37-10. Yeah. So, I mean, they're a good team. They're undefeated. But there was another upset, and that's why we called it fucking upset. So,
and
Texas,
Penn State, for you folks who haven't been following.
Oh, no, George. I'm sorry. I got to cut you off this time. Texas, Shorty, remember? They beat Oklahoma.
And you know what? That's the save Mack Brown's job game. Because I'm going to tell you what, if Oklahoma would have beat them by 10 or more points, Mack Brown would be in the unemployment line.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you what, they put an ass whipping on Oklahoma. That score, it was just like the LSU Florida game. They let them have that last 7 at the end of the game. They whipped fucking Oklahoma's ass. And like you said, Mack Brown, now they're sitting at 4-2. And the funny thing about Texas is they're 3-0 in the Big 12. So I'm like, they're actually sitting good in the Big 12. So
yeah, they could win the Big 12 and still have a loss or two.
Yep, they could have a loss or two. So,
actually, what is their record? They're gonna have don't they have 3 losses?
No, they're everybody was having doubts on Texas. Texas is 4-2. And they're undefeated, and I think because they had bad losses, what I'm saying? That's what everybody started freaking the fuck out about, because who did they drop? They had a loss to BYU, and then they dropped the loss to Ole Miss, who was basically ranked 25th.
What kills them is those were back-to-back losses. I'm telling you, when you lose 2 games in a row in college when you shouldn't, that's when people start to go,
Yeah, they freak out, but then you turn back around, you fucking win, your biggest SEC foe. You beat them, easily, and you're undefeated in the conference, and now you're back in the picture. So,
well, the rape capital of the world hosted a huge football game this weekend.
Mm-hmm. Man, I try to ignore some of your fucking shit.
Anyway, I can do nothing but speak. I don't even know how to put it.
I'm going to tell you what. I can only say that Penn State, one, they're giving these kids and their families a good amount of money. That's good. They've turned everything around very quickly and got rid of the shit they should have got rid of. And I feel great for fucking their coach, their football coach.
Yeah, I do too. But the one kid I would definitely highlight is this kid, Christian Hackenberg. The kid comes in. He's a senior last year in high school when all this shit's going down. And they asked him, he didn't have to go to Penn State. He could have gone anywhere he wanted. And after all this shit came out, they said, do you still want to go? He's like, yeah, I'm going to help rebuild.
Yep.
And that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he's starting as a true freshman. He put that team on his back and he played his ass off. And that team
put the team on his back.
4 overtimes?
Right. They went in 4 overtimes. It was the most bizarre circus. The way that Penn State even got to tie the game was like circus catches. I'm serious. When I say circus catches, circus fucking catches. And anybody out there who saw the game has got to agree with me. It was spectacular, George. And I was texting you going, are you watching this crazy shit? And then the shit that happened in overtime again and again. The kickers going 1 for 3. Both kickers going 1 for 3 and field goals that are all inside the 40. And the field goals are not long because they start off at the 25. So they were hacking shit. Michigan's kicker had not missed the field goal going into this game for the whole season.
Now, and then he misses the quarterback for Penn State. Now, I understand for you people who are not Penn State fans, you're Michigan fans, you're going to rip me to pieces because he was 23 for 44, 305 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. But he's a true freshman. And I understand you're probably looking at the kid from Florida State going, well, he's not as good as him. Just relax, okay? The kid's going to be good. He's going to be around for a long time.
He's fucking 18 years old, man,
Yeah,
fucking 18 years old, and he's playing the 18th ranked team in the country. No one expects you to win. Penn State's 4-2 right now, and they're 1-1 in the Big Ten. They're in the mix.
Right.
Now,
I think there were only 2 other scares. I mean, one of them was Texas A&M and Manziel almost blowing out his knee, ankle, or hip, knee, and toe. They managed to win that game by, 3 points? 4 points? Yeah, 3 points, which is scary.
Well, they won by a touchdown.
And then and then Clemson, because everyone was worried about Clemson overlooking Boston College and maybe looking on the next week when they play Florida State. And that right there, that's for the ACC title. Florida State has to go, Florida State has to go to Clemson. That's going to be a rough fucking game, dude.
The fucked up thing about the ACC right now is everybody who's really strong, except for Miami, all the other strong teams are on that one side. It's kind of like the fucking SEC West. You know what I mean?
And Miami's sitting right at number 10, and they have to go to North Carolina. And this last year, the past couple of years, this is a game they would lose. I think this is going to be a telltale game for Miami. They should go in and absolutely beat the brakes off UNC. And if they do, then we can start to say Miami's back.
Yeah, it's funny. I said this today. One of the guys on our board talked about, the SEC. He said, well, it's, look at the rankings. It shows it doesn't matter unless you're in the SEC. And what he was saying is they put in a record 8 teams this week are in the top 25, in the AP 25 from the SEC, which is a record. And, but I did say this, and this is funny. If Alabama catches a loss, there's a good chance that an SEC team will not win the national championship. Not because they don't have the best team, because they have the best teams, I think. But there's a very good chance that Oregon can run the table. There's a very good chance that Ohio State can run the table. There's a very good chance that there's be an ACC team that runs the table. And also,
it'll be interesting to see what Oregon does, because this is their first year without Kelly. And now in the next 2 to 3 weeks is normally when they choke and they blow it. I think if they get back past these next couple weeks, then they should run the table. They should win the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And if they you could potentially have 3, maybe 4 teams undefeated, and they're all going to be sitting there staring at each other. Ohio State should be undefeated.
I think this, George. I think you're right. I think this is going to be the perfect and touching final year for the fucking BCS, because I think this is going to be the year where it fucks it up, because it's going to be undefeated teams.
I'm going to go ahead right here and make my prediction for the national title game. I think it's going to be Ohio State versus Florida State.
Ohio State versus Florida State?
Yep.
You could be right, but you think Oregon is... Now, what happens if there's fucking
Oregon will lose. I think Oregon will choke. I think Oregon will choke and lose a game, and I don't think Florida State or Ohio State will. And with those 2 teams undefeated, and LSU is going to beat Alabama, so that'll knock Alabama down a rung, even though they've lost. Their loss is going to be to LSU. I think if you have 2 undefeated teams, you're not going to have a team in there with 1 loss.
I just think... I think the tough game for them, they've got... UCLA's coming in. They're going to be ranked 9th. They've got Washington State, which should be a joke. This is Oregon. They're at Stanford, and I think that's a tough game. And then they've got, what's funny? They've got to play Utah, who just, played this. But I don't see any of these teams beating them. I think their toughest thing, I guess you could say UCLA and Stanford will be tests, but I just don't think either one of those teams after this week, I don't think Stanford can beat them.
If Oregon runs the table and Stanford is still ranked and UCLA is still ranked when they play them and they win the Pac-12 title, then they should be right in there. But I don't see how you're going to sit there and look at an Ohio State team that went undefeated last year. And if they go undefeated back-to-back years, you got to put Ohio State in there.
Yeah, you're going to have to. I'm going to tell you what, and I said this last week, and everybody was probably looking at me cross-eyed. And I'm telling you, a team that fell off the map because they took a loss early and took it on the chin, and they lost. The team they lost to is a team that's undefeated. We were just talking about UCLA. They haven't lost. They're looking good. They're looking like one of the best teams in the Pac-12. Was Nebraska, and Nebraska's silently beating the shit out of everybody, and they've only got 1 loss. They could challenge Ohio State.
I would love to see it, dude.
Yep.
I fucking hate Ohio State.
Yep. And they could challenge them. So, it's only halfway through the football season, so it's interesting how it's all going to play out. But anyway, that is it.